So, what is awareness? In spiritual circles, we hear a lot about awareness and consciousness. And it's useful to really see what that direct experience is. We're all familiar with our five senses. It's how this organism knows what's happening out in the world. There's also the sense of thought. And that's similar in some ways to our, what's commonly called the five senses. It's almost like an internal hearing. So one of the things about the senses is that they're pure non-conceptual inputs, the five senses. Thinking's a little bit different. But what thinking has in common with the five ordinary senses is that we can watch the thinking. We can receive the information that runs through our mind, almost as a movie screen, as a video. So since we can stand back from it, it means that we are not it. Descartes in the 1700s talked about, I think therefore I am. So there's an attempted definition at that point that who we are is limited to our thinking. But there's many times in our life, not just in meditation, many times in our ordinary life where thinking ceases. When we're surprised, when we hear a good joke, when we're startled, when we're awed into a moment of silence before the mind comes in and says, oh, what a beautiful sunset. So there's moments of silence in our life, and yet we still exist, despite not thinking in that moment. The mind may come in a split second later, like an NFL announcer, and tell us what just happened. But there are moments when the mind ceases, and yet we still are. We still exist. So that sense of simple existence, everyday awareness that everyone has right now, without exception, simply because you can't say, no, I'm not aware. No, I don't exist. The statement is impossible to state honestly. And in fact, it's the one thing we can truly say about ourselves with absolute confidence. There's this sense of, yes, I exist. I may not know what I is. I may not understand what existing is, but there's this sense of simple existence. So this sense of awareness, existence, aliveness, consciousness, I don't care what we call it, but just that simple state, it's not a state, it's a simple looking, noticing what's happening on the screen of our mind, what's happening to the information that we receive from our sensory inputs. Just that sense, that everyday awareness. I'm not talking about a special spiritual awareness. You may have heard the term pure consciousness. This doesn't refer to a moral purity. It simply means tuning into that consciousness that exists prior to content. And by content, I mean everything else. Everything other than consciousness. I mean the thoughts in our heads, the physical sensations, the experience that we're having, our visual field, all of that. Our situation, our history, our story, our memory, everything is content. And then there's this simple awareness that is aware of all of it, always has been. And you may sense into this awareness as if it's always been there somehow. Even if we've spent decades on this planet, there's a sense of, yeah, but there's always something that I felt was always there, even though the body has changed, aged, my story has changed, my cells have come and gone many times. And yet there's a sense of this simple awareness. And we can rest in that awareness. We can be curious about that awareness. That's the door. I hope you enjoyed the talk today. I'll talk again soon.